All right, in this part of our learning, we are going to move into another aspect of the framework we have just discussed. Okay, and when we refer to the social impact, which is extremely wide for almost all of it. In particular, this can be different country by country, industry by industry, or even place by place. But to make it easier for us in business to understand how can we really work with stakeholders to understand the concept of societal or social impact and define strategy that best fit the need of the society where we operate. So there are different ways to look at this. First, if you are working in international business, I guess the impact, as in how can you really work with stakeholders in the local country or the host country should be your priority. And that would fit in the legal and perhaps the social framework of the country where you operate. So in this circumstance, you look at example from a number of multinational corporations where they operate in another country. They can allocate resources and strategies and decide which strategy to fit in what they look out as the expected social impact. But you also have to think about the consumer at the place where you operate and or perhaps outside the place you operate. Second, if you work in a startup, similar to the environmental aspect, startup can really make life easier or can really bring the good quality of life back to the citizen of the world. So if you focus on other aspects of life quality, for example, if you map the Sustainable Development Goal, the 17 points, for example, no poverty, no hunger, quality education, innovation, any of these can be the fruit of the so-called startup work on social impact. All right, this is the broad idea. But at this stage, let's think about how can we map the social impact, which can be quite different from what when we look at the issue on environmental aspect. Well, first, you have to start by define the social aspect that you are interested in. And as simple as the fact that you should think about the impact that will hit your stakeholder, in particular, your primary stakeholder, very strongly. For instance, your client, your suppliers, and or your workers. Let's see what kind of issues that they suffer or they feel it needs to be improved. Second, you have to think of the kind of impact that you expect for. Look at this slide that I'm sharing with you now. There are 4 types of social impact that we can identify. The first type is clear impact measures. This sort of impact look at the changes in stakeholder performance, such as if you identify to work with your workers, your labor. So skill assessment might be one thing, and you might look at skill development, observation tools to identify the impact they have. The second type is called high impact. High impact is what we measure in terms of changes in the business system and the way we operate business, as in quality. You can look at environmental effects, input and indicators on environmental issues, as well as health issues of people we work with. The third type is the wide impact. This kind of impact measures the changes in relationship mapping and social impact assessment to make sure the operators can achieve the desired social impact. Last but not least is the deep impact. The deep impact is the impact that focus upon consumers' satisfaction through happiness inventories from the efforts the business is making toward creating social impact. So at this stage, we understand that a sustainable business that want to create social impact need to consider all business factors or the companies within its supply chains through the 4 impacts. They need to make deliberate efforts in dealing and maintaining relationship with other businesses that are also creating the social impact. Right now, we get into understand the type of impacts. The next step is to identify who to work with. Right? This can be the issues that we discussed in the previous lesson on identification of your primary, secondary stakeholders. You might need to talk to them and see what kind of values they are looking at, and at the same time, what kind of issues that you can really work with them to make a difference. For example, if you are a startup looking at providing access to microfinance for women and or perhaps for the poor in certain area, and the same kind of work with Grameen Bank, you might have to really discuss with stakeholders such as the government, as well as those who will be the facilitators in the country, looking at target. Secondly, you have to identify the package that you will offer to your client or potential clients in that country. Okay, so then once they get access to microfinance, how would you measure the level of development, whether through income, health, and or quality of life indicators? Right, so there are different ways to look at this, but I can really identify these 4 steps as one of the most practical ways to identify, measure, and then discuss the social impact of international business and startup. I would like to encourage those who are interested in running your own startup or making it better, scaling it up, that social impact is really the way to go for most startups to be successful. Even to have your first footstep in the new place. We found out that companies or startup organizations will need to work with local stakeholders on the solution for social issues in the host country. And again, I mentioned to you that technology and innovation that startup can bring and apply into the business can improve a number of aspects of societal issue, from unemployment, homelessness, underage pregnancy, or issues on health and pandemic. A good example is with COVID-19. We found that this is the amalgamation of impact, environmental, economic, and social as broad. So if you think of startups such as QQ, a Thai startup that grow in countries such as Vietnam and Malaysia, they simply provide a good system that help you to book your health service in advance in the old day. But now, with the requirement for social distancing and with the fact that most doctors will have to think about time they spend with their patients or clients, this kind of startup that provide the application for making an appointment to see the doctor can be the asset that is extremely useful and helpful for health and also for the well-being of the patient and the doctors, right? So this is just one example that you can really find a way and perhaps tweak the business model that you can design as the social impact. Last but not least, I have to again bring back the concept of business model. Social impact has the cost to pay, right? I understand that we are doing this startup for the sake of profit. So we are not doing a charitable work. And that it's very clear to all of us. You have to be sure that your business model would really support the society in the sense that you might be able to bring profit and use that to generate well-being or solve a particular issues. A great example there would be a startup in Thailand called Cabbage and Condom by Kun Michai Viravaichaya, who really think of public health as the business. So he said health is like grocery. You should go out and then shopping and then get good food and good health. Right? So he run this kind of restaurant called Cabbage and Condom, and then he used the profit to promote issues on sexual health among youngers and the vulnerable groups. These are examples of startup that can really promote social impact. There are many ways to look at this. In the next session, I'll bring you to a particular aspect of human rights and how can we improve this issue through the mechanism of startup.